Hello, hello, and welcome all to another fantastic episode of Questioning Everything. Tonight we are on episode 56. What kind of world did we inherit? So, we all know so much about the old world by now. Hi, how are all of you guys doing today? I hope you guys are having a great work week. And thanks very much, as always, for tuning in live with me tonight. So, something that's been sitting with me for quite a while now. I've been known as the old world guy, Tartaria, Mud Flood, our hidden history. And we've talked so much about that in these 55 plus episodes with you guys, just these few short months already. But I think what I kind of want to discuss tonight is the growing feeling that a lot of what we've been told about the world, about history, about the way things are, and not just history, but current times, the world we live in today, doesn't quite hold up when you start looking at it closely, does it? It's not just one thing, it's a bunch of things that all seem to point in the same direction that brings up the same set of questions. There is definitely something strange about the world we live in, and I'm going to explore it all of it with you. It's not just going to be about the history of this realm. We've got quite a lot to go on for the moment. I want to try and understand with you guys what this world we inherited truly is. There is so much depth and beauty to this world, especially when your eyes are open. I mean, there's just so much more to explore, so much more to see. The world just seems so much bigger. But what exactly type of world is it? Um, you look at the buildings, you can see clear layers of quality declining over time. You look at city after city, and they all seem to have the exact same story to explain their past. You read history, and it feels too clean, too polished, like it was written after the fact rather than during the actual events. And when you start digging into details, even past the surface level of the narrative of history we've been taught, it all starts falling apart. It feels staged, not necessarily in a everything is fake conspiracy way, but a much more unsettling way than that, I believe. Like someone went back later and carefully arranged how we're supposed to see the past and maybe even the present. Tonight, I want to walk through several different threads that feel all seem to connect to that underlying question: the declining quality of our building environment, uh, the declining quality of our built environment, the suspiciously similar stories every city tells, the way history reads like it was written after the fact, the growing cracks in the system that used to control the narrative so effectively, and the strange feeling that real creativity and originality have been drying up for a long time. Because when you put all of these pieces together, it starts to raise a much bigger question. What kind of world are we actually living in? So let's get into it. But first, just to kind of discuss the show schedule, tomorrow we will have our Open Lines Friday episode, regular time, 10:30 p.m. Central Standard Time live. And if you guys are new to the program or not quite familiar with what our Open Lines Friday show is, it's a compilation of pretty much everything we've talked about, not just through this week, but throughout the weeks. It's primarily your guys' show on Fridays. Whatever topic you guys want to talk about, if it's something we discussed recently, something we haven't even brought up, Friday is the day for that. If you have not yet found your way to my Discord, that's a great place to join in on the fun before or after the show. You can chat, share show ideas, share interesting stories, interesting discoveries you have found yourself. Discord is a great place for that. And of course, check out my link tree for all my other pages. But also, if you want to call into the show, if you have a topic you want to bring up, a topic we discussed you'd like to talk further on, Open Lines Friday is a great place to do that. So, and that's pretty much every Friday, schedule permitting here. And next week should be business as usual, folks. Three shows Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday again. I will have a bonus episode. Me and Tim Constantine sat down again. We discussed dragons, old world stuff, all those goodies. It was another great conversation. Really love my conversations with Tim. It is up on his show as well, and I'll upload it here on this page probably maybe tonight or tomorrow sometime, depending. But it was a great conversation, talking a lot about dragons. If you haven't seen my dragons episode way back, I recommend checking that out as well. Talked a lot about those topics and much more from there. So, all right, let's jump right into tonight's episode then. So, every city has the same narrative. Every major city seems to tell you the exact same story. Not even major city, every city, big or small, seems to tell you the exact same story to explain why their old high quality buildings are buried or why the quality suddenly dropped off. You go to Chicago and they say it's the 1871 Great Fire, right? Let's look at some of these comparisons too. Compared like the Chicago Great Fire, another Great Fire I'll bring up, and just look how it all seems the same. It's the same script, the same narrative repeated over and over again. So, like I said, you go to Chicago, they say the Great Fire of 1871 destroyed everything, nearly everything in the city, and they had to raise the street levels. You go to Seattle, and here's just a few photos. Look at this is from the Chicago Great Fire. And I just wanted to kind of point out a couple things from my collection of them. Notice no soot, no burning on nearly any of these photos. Brick is just completely turned to rubble. People standing around posing like they're on vacation in very well to do attire. No soot or dirtiness on any of their clothes. Their undershirts are pure white. They even got their little bowler hats and top hats, right? And that's very odd. I mean, look at this telephone pole spared. This whole palace like building completely turned to rubble. None of it makes sense when you look at any of these great fire photos. Again, trees completely spared, utility poles completely spared. This building is in complete rubble. No signs of soot, fire damage, scorching at all in nearly any of these photos, right? I mean, what was on fire in this photo at all? It just looks like a bomb went off, like some kind of seismic charge, some kind of reset event. And all these well dressed people you see popping all around here, these little carriages, they're the inheritors rolling into the scenes of these cities in ruin. So, this is some Chicago photos. And now, like in Chicago, let's take a look at Seattle. You're going to see the exact same setup. And that's what makes it so weird. It doesn't matter what city, big or small, they all have these few excuses to explain what you're seeing and why they had to bury and or raise their street levels. So here's Seattle. Again, you got well dressed people. And I know that was kind of the attire at the time, but think if you're walking through a fire zone, basically a war zone. Again, wooden utility poles, relatively intact, brick and stone completely in rubble. Another shot of the inheritors just standing around, not a single speck of dirt on any of their suits. Got their nice bowler hats on. They look like they just came from church. I mean, look at this. What happened here? Like, look at that big pile of rubble. It looks like they just kind of rolled up to this long after a cataclysmic event. And it looks like this in every city. More Seattle people just standing around, posing around. This is Denny Hill when they supposedly filled that in with the great fire debris to raise the street levels there. More people in suits and ties just posing around. Absolutely no signs of scorching or fire, soot, or anything. Utility poles still standing. Another one of them just posing. This is almost like a shot for shot from the Chicago fire. But this isn't even Seattle. This is Boston in 1872. That's right. Boston, if you guys don't know, had a similar grade fire to Chicago, just like so many other cities in this country and across the world. But America had a very large amount of them. And you get the same images, the same excuses. And if it wasn't a big fire, it was flooding. So, fire or flooding, they had to raise the street level. And that explains away why every city in America and across the world has the same silly narrative. And it really just does not add up. You would expect some variations. So many cities building on their main streets only to have them needed to be raised once again. The narrative is remarkably consistent no matter where you are. All of the same few sets of stories to explain this: buried layers, buried archways, buried brick doorways, under street level. And most of the time, the explanation comes after the fact, doesn't it? It's not just the explanation is already built into history. It's once we make this discovery, once a city works crew is making works on the sewage system and they dig up a complete buried tunnel system connecting all the buildings. We've seen many local news stories from Cleveland to cities in Illinois, just tons of the same stories with those too. I'll show some of those news clips on Open Lines Friday tomorrow. I have dozens of them. And this is worldwide. Beautiful, highly detailed buildings built from the late 1800s and early 1900s get partially buried under dirt and debris, and then lower quality buildings get built after them. If these were all natural, independent disasters happening at different times in different places, you'd expect the story to be messy and unique to each city, but they're not. The explanations are suspiciously similar. It feels like someone handed every city the same script and told them to read from it. That level of consistency across completely different locations is one of the biggest red flags when you start questioning the official story, right? It suggests that these explanations might not be organic local histories at all, but rather a standardized narrative that was applied across many places at roughly the same exact time. So, Just kind of looking through your chat here before we go to the next segment. Military testing tech. I mean, that's always been a theory in the community. Is it some kind of directed energy weapons to explain these great fires, Roxy? But I mean, I'm not sure. I think a lot of them look like they've just been in ruins for some time. Like that looks a lot more like a worldwide disaster type setting, a long aftermath, like those Chicago Great Fires pictures, the Seattle, the Boston, and how they're all so uniformed. And the people that are posing for pictures in them all are so well dressed. It looks more like a rival to a city in an ancient city in ruins rather than some great fire just took place. No one's coming to save us, to each his own. I don't believe. I mean, we must save ourselves, you know? I mean, it's why I don't want to focus just on history. History is a very important part to learn where we're going, is to learn where we've been. I've always thought that, but it's not just history we have to look at to, really kind of build this community and build awareness and, figure out where we're going. We also must look at the set of rules and circumstances and the stories and how they all connect and intertwine. So, another thing, getting into the history aspect of it though, is the more and more you look at all these narratives for the stories of what we're seeing in history, the ones that we're taught in, doesn't feel like it was written while they were actually happening. It feels like it was written long afterwards, sometimes decades, maybe centuries later, once someone has already decided what the official story needed to be. When you read original accounts from that time period, wherever the events are taking place, newspapers, letters, diaries, or reports written by people who were actually there, they don't read like finished history, the finished history we've been taught. World War II is a great example of this. Read all the original newspaper stories from the time from across the world. Read individual accounts. Read individuals who were there on the ground, what their thoughts were. Read General Patton's accounts of World War II, for example. Very, very different story that was painted than what we've been told in our history class. Um, they don't, they read like people were trying to make sense of something confusing in real time. The explanations are incomplete, the timelines are messy. People often admit they don't fully understand what they're seeing or experiencing in these accounts. It feels raw and uncertain, the way real history should feel when it's still unfolding. But the version of history we get in our books, schools, and documentaries feel very, very different. It's already been processed, it's already been purified, it's already been organized. It reads like someone went back much, much later, looked at all the scattered pieces, and then wrote a clean, finished story with the benefits of hindsight. The big difference is the gap in time. A lot of what we accept as history wasn't written by the people living through those events. It was written by much later generations or by institutions who had already decided how these events should be remembered and understood. And once that decision was made, the story was shaped to fit it. This is why so much of the official history feels like it was written as an aftermath. It wasn't documented organically as things were happening. It was constructed later, once the dust had settled and someone had already chosen which version of events was going to be accepted. Just kind of reading through your guys' comments as well. I appreciate all your guys' comments. Keep them coming. I'll try and get to some of them tonight. If I don't get too much comments tonight, I have a lot to go over. I will definitely get to them tomorrow for Open Lines Friday. Hey, Michael, thank you so much for that trophy cake. I appreciate it very, very much. Thank you very much for those jewels. Thank you. So, this delay really truly matters when we're looking at the big picture. When history is written in the moment, it's messy because life is messy, right? Nothing is as organized as we want it to seem. But when it's written long after the fact, it becomes much easier to control the narrative. As they say, history goes to the victor. You can leave things out. You can rearrange the order of events. You can decide which details are important and which ones get forgotten. And over time, that written version becomes the only version most people will ever see. Because outside of history class, I would say a large majority, at least 70%, will never pick up another history book, will never pick up a biography and anything like that, look any further than what they were taught in school. Most people were taught, most people's history classes, myself were included, were so bland and dry and boring, much more about date memorization and things like that that really didn't help you paint a flowing picture of history. And mostly because all of that history was not just necessarily written long after the moment by people that weren't even alive to recall it, but perhaps it was written by a program like an AI system or something along those lines that they had the ability of long before any type of AI chatbot or anything like that we have today. We know military technology, the technology the government has, is decades, if not centuries, ahead of what's out and available in the public. Not even talking about all the things that they deliberately hold back from us, right? So, this is why so much of what we're told about the past feels like it's decided later rather than recorded as it happens. Because in many cases, this is exactly what occurred. And this segues in to my next segment about history not only written after the fact, long after the fact, but it's written when you look at it from afar. When you look at all these repeating narratives in all of these cities, all the same buried undergrounds with either great fires or flooding excuses, right? It starts to feel like maybe it was a mass rewrite of everything we see. Every city, every date has been rewritten, much like the 1984 quote I always like to throw around. The street names have been renamed, the paintings have been painted over, everything has stopped. A lot of the official history we're given today doesn't feel like it was written by people who were actually living in those events. It feels like it was created afterwards. Like someone went back long later and rewrote the story. But where it doesn't start, it's where it stops feeling like a somebody and starts feeling like a machine. If you've ever had any experience with these AI chatbots today, you know it can write out your book report in a snap of a finger if you want, in a snap of your fingers if you let it. But if you actually read through what it writes out, it can spit out pages and pages. It looks good from the distance. You know, it reads well, it flows decently. But if you start picking apart anything in it, it'll be like it's never actually read the book or it's talking about a completely different book, right? Anybody that's used AI for their job or anything like that, you really have to double check even the smallest details that it provides you. It can be handy tools for certain tasks, but when it comes to large data processing and large storytelling, like large segments, like it gets a little silly with the details. And that's exactly what I see with our history. Um, from a distance, it looks really good. America was founded, beat the British, we got our independence, etc. Like all of these stories of our country's foundings, our country's origins. It all sounds so neat and pretty with a nice little bow on top from the surface, right? It's coherent, it flows well, the timelines make relative sense, the cause and effects line up, everything connects in a neat, logical way. It's easy to accept if you're not looking too closely, and most people don't look too closely or never even look at all. Excuse me. But the moment you start digging past the surface and actually scrutinizing it, it starts falling apart pretty quickly, doesn't it? You go back and look at original sources, newspapers from the time, personal letters, government documents, what ones you can find, firsthand accounts, and pictures. It's much messier. People were confused. Timelines don't line up. The explanations are incomplete. They are contradictions to the mainstream narrative. Very much so. It feels like they were trying to make sense of something chaotic in real time without the benefit of hindsight. The modern version of history feels very different from that. It has this polished, surface level quality to it. It sounds intelligent and well reasoned until you start asking specific questions or looking at details. Then the cracks start showing, glaringly so. The bottom line is it feels absolutely arranged, and it feels like it was all arranged at almost the same time, doesn't it? Like someone took all the messy scattered pieces and deliberately shaped them into something that looks coherent and believable, even when the underlying reality was far more complicated and uncertain than what we've been told. That's what a lot of history feels like to me. Like it was just a construction of events either done by some kind of AI bot. I mean, they've had this type of technology. The AI we've had today, the ones that are available to us, they probably had for decades, if not hundreds of years. And I believe when you see those people from like the Great Fire photos, any great disasters at the time, they're all rolling up to these buildings in ruin that don't match the surroundings we're told for them, that they should be charred and burned beyond recognition from a great fire, but they're just rubble, clean rubble. It looks like those inheritors that just rolled up with pristine clothes, not a speck of dirt on them. It's whatever apparatus or machines they had that wrote this history that we're currently being taught. The Rockefeller standardized education system coming in. It all was coordinated, rewritten to fill it in to a somewhat coherent state from a distance. But again, it I always call it paper thin history because the moment you start poking through it, it just all like just rips apart. It just all falls apart. Seth, you said, I know for a fact that the Americas were very intertwined, well developed, and advanced. I have seen too much in South America depicting it. They were purposely separate from the rest of the world. Oh, yes, I completely agree. All those cities in the Amazon in South America that we haven't even discovered, they're in like so far remote regions in the jungles there that we can't even get to effectively in the modern day. We've done LiDAR scans, high altitude laser scans of the area, and we found many structures, settlements up and down the Amazon. But the lack of exploration and rush to uncover that is quite telling too. It shows that the powers that be don't want to accidentally stumble upon anything that'll again completely contradict the narrative, as so much of these discoveries have. So it's all written to look good from a distance, isn't it? It was arranged to make sense in a textbook. When you're being told 50 minutes of boring history 5 days a week in high school, just enough to follow along to get the midterms and these tests all passed, and otherwise, most of it's lost on people the moment they graduate. Already decided what the accepted story should be rather than being written by people who were actually there trying to document what has happened in the moment. And once you start seeing history that way, you can't unsee it. It just all is like the same. If you've ever played a video game, an open world video game, they might seem like big, massive maps, but once you start seeing the patterns, the repeating NPCs, the repeating buildings, the repeating generated trees, all of that, and you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. So, no, I'm not necessarily saying that we live in a simulation, maybe a hybrid. But what I am saying is none of it seems organic, at least to me. So, the next segment here we'll talk a little bit about is one of my own personal observations doing so many of these old world tours in these small towns lately. I've been to Appleton, Menasha, Chicago, as you know, uh, going to Oshkosh soon, going to Milwaukee soon, a couple other little cities around my area I'm hoping to visit soon. But one thing that I notice that kind of shows you again a very obvious way to observe this repeating pattern that every city seems to have, every city, big or small, whether it's in America or anywhere else in the world. It's all like three layers. One of the clearest and most visible signs that something doesn't add up to me is walk around through almost any of these older cities, especially in America, places like Australia, and really look. You can see three very distinct layers of building quality. And the timeline of these layers is surprisingly recent. The first layer is from the 1800s through the early 1900s, the layer where we have very little documentation on, no original blueprints, no original building permits, anything like that, right? And then you have a post-war era. You go out a little bit past the main street, the original streets of the city. You have like a post-war era, a very rushed. It's still good construction quality, right? But it's cheaper material. It's not beautiful, intricate stonework, beautiful, ornate details. The buildings from the 1800s to the 1900s, those buildings were on another level. The brickwork is precise, the stone carvings, the intricacies, the ornate details, even the little commercial buildings from this era and the building timelines with them. They were built with pride and skill. They feel solid, they feel permanent. You can tell that whoever built them cared about what they were making. Then you get to the second layer, the 1930s through the 1970s, right before the Great Wars, right after the post war build period. Again, these are still decent buildings. They're functional, they're not ugly, but you can already see a very noticeable drop in quality. So let me show you exactly kind of a little bit of examples of this time. Just got a few pictures of each of them I'll show you guys. So when I talk about 1800s, early 1900s period, I'm talking about buildings like maybe, sorry, my screen's being a little slow. Buildings like this, all built in a time period we like to refer to as the horse and buggy era, right? All just beautiful, impossible details the world over, all building these same exact buildings at the exact same time, looking like palaces and castles, just beautiful, impressive architecture that we don't do anywhere close to the level of detail today. And then we get to the post war time, the right up to the war, and we get to buildings that look like this. Again, very great quality still for the most part, but you can already see the shift from the old world 1800, 1900 buildings. Very simple designs, no ornate carvings, no details like that. The quality compared to what came before, the materials just not quite as good. The craftsmanship just isn't as refined. The details start getting simplified or removed completely. And then you hit the third and final layer of this puzzle. You go a little bit out in your city past the post war buildings, the small but very solid structures. I'm talking about buildings around 1980s onwards, right? These buildings are a completely different caliber. They are just empty boxes, shapeless in design. They lacked all character. The quality completely collapses. Everything starts looking cheap, hollow, and disposable. The materials are far inferior from the other two layers. The designs are repetitive and soulless. It feels like everything is being thrown up as fast and as cheaply as possible with zero regard to how it looks. And it's funny, that's all about what they are today, but they still built those beautiful buildings from the 1800s and 1900s faster than these quickly slapped together buildings that we build today. I just grabbed a couple examples. I mean, you just see empty, square, soulless, devoid of any detail glass boxes. Doesn't matter where you are, big or small. I will say skyscrapers are kind of cool, but again, you have no detail in them. They're just big, giant glass towers. It's amazing that they're giant and as tall as they are, but really, it just lacks the soul. Like buildings back then were built at a whole different level to uplift and inspire their population, right? What is uplifting and inspiring about this building? Nothing. It just sits soullessly into the background. Let's look at another example of these. Let's look at the post office comparison. So you can do this with pretty much anything from municipal buildings to commercial buildings. But I came across one article and I wanted to share it with you guys of these beautiful post offices from America. And sadly, most of these are demolished now. But before, they were just so beautiful and so over the top. And mind you, these are all post offices. Sorry, hang on, I'm waiting for my screen to share. Keep the chat coming. Like I said, if I don't get too much questions today, I have a lot of stuff to kind of go over in my notes tonight. If I don't get to you guys' questions much today, I will definitely get to them on Open Lines Friday. Hey, thank you so much, Cal, for the jewels. I do appreciate that very, very much so. Okay, sorry, my screen's being a little slow. Okay, so this is a post office in Boston. Let's just look at some of these beautiful post offices together. This is Buffalo's, New York's post office in 1900. And they say the buried levels are always because they raised the street level, but they were a building feature because apparently this is right after new construction. And you can clearly see around the edges already the buried and sunken layers. For that in 1900, like you wouldn't make a sublayer like that. It's so hard to build basements without any heavy excavating equipment. And again, look at all the ornate details. Looks like a church or a chapel, cathedral. And why would a post office need such a giant tower? Well, if you watched our last episode on lighthouses and mooring stations of airships, again, yep, whited out skies as usual. And you can see the etching marks around the towers where the ornate details are very complex. You can see it's a lot harder for them to cut out the skies here without showing you. And I mean, you can just pick and choose any photos. Like, look at that. You can see clearly where they just cut skies right out, clear alteration. But that's Buffalo, New York. This is Chestnut Street Post Office in Philadelphia. This is the City Hall and Post Office in New York. This is the post office in Memphis, Tennessee. All of these built around the same time frame, folks. Cleveland, Ohio's post office. Another just beautiful post office. Albany, New York. I'm wondering what these towers are for. Well, we all know. You can see the clear cutting out of the skies right here. All of that just built with the horse and buggies and the people walking around. This one is in Duluth, Minnesota, sorry. Augusta, Georgia. I mean, just look at that. What is that on top of it? That is an ether tower. Look at that ball. Those antennas and towers all removed right around the same time. All of those lighthouses were removed. All the empty bell towers, all of those at the same time. The buried library in the desert in that one episode of Avatar, The Last Airbender, always fascinated me. Yeah, and that's kind of what I feel like. That's a great point there, Mike. It's kind of what I feel like all of these buildings were like, just these beautiful buildings where all that remained just buried in mud, very buried in deserts. And the inheritors just came, dug them out, repurposed them, refurbished them, and called them courthouses and city halls, positions of power, positions of control, buildings like that were always the most beautiful and ornate ones for these little cities, right? The inheritors took the best ones for themselves. Here's another one in Baltimore. And a good thing to look at is just look at the cutout skies there on that one. This one is in Birmingham, Alabama. Just look at that tower. Perfect for mooring station, perfect for anything but a post office. Another just over the top palace like post office in Rome. Veronica, why do they cut out the skies? There's a lot of reasons why. Every time you don't see cut out and altered skies, Veronica, you see multiple airships. They made airships seem like they were a small, short lived fad that quickly faded away. But in photos where they don't have altered skies in the past, you see often one or multiple airships in them. And it's not just airships. There's probably many other things, buildings in the skyline before they were supposed to be constructed. Again, we have this very flimsy narrative, very flimsy narrative that doesn't add up. And they have to make it fit as much as they can. So sometimes buildings are going to be in the background of shots that weren't supposed to be there, so they have to blur them out and just kind of cutting out this building and just putting it on a fake backdrop. That's what a lot of these shots look like. They just cut out the building and just put it on a fake backdrop, a backdrop that fits the skyline at the time, etc. And of course, the airships. Just another one. This is the post office in Detroit, Michigan. It looks just like the one in Buffalo or many other ones I've showed you. And why would a post office again need a giant tower like that? It just makes no sense. You would just go so over the top at a time where you didn't have the heavy machinery, the heavy equipment. Founded, not built. Exactly right, Michael. That's exactly what these are. Speaking of which, this one's in Louisville. I mean, look at right next to the courthouse. You have a buried foundation. Here's a window right at street level, just completely buried, unexcavated area. And this is just nice, clean, and polished, but a whited out sky, clear altering around the buildings like it just was cut out. Look at that. Just completely fake. All of these photos, you can easily see fakes on them. Once you know what to look for, you can see it everywhere. Zoom in on this. Look again. Just what is that? Clear cutout, copied and pasted onto a blank canvas. That building almost looks like it's drawn in, doesn't it? Again, buried levels already. This is a post office in Montgomery, Alabama, and New York City's post office as well. Just look at those carts, piles of rubble and mud right next to them. Nobody around. Just one lone guy for a post office this giant in New York City at the time. Make it make sense. The populations don't add up. The empty streets don't add up in any of these photos. They're all altered. They're all whited out. Just moved back from Pittsburgh, from Dina, Ohio. My favorite thing to do was drive around the hilltops and notice how many of them are no hills. Yeah, most of the hills, the piles of rocks, the mountains, even that we've been told, they are anything but. They are definitely anything but. I don't know whether to be envious of the people who built and used those buildings or be fearful, as they may have been disciples of the devil. I don't necessarily think that. I think, a lot of these buildings could be remnants of the thousand-year reign of Christ. That's a very popular theory. I think it holds a lot of weight, and it's very interesting theory. I'm just not quite there myself fully. There's a lot of unanswered questions to make that assertion, but there's a lot of people in the field that do make that assertion that thousand-year reign of Christ has came and went. And there's a lot of interesting statements and presentations to make that case. A few more of these courthouses. Pittsburgh, PA again. I wonder what they had to cut out right here. Interesting. Interesting. Port Huron, Michigan. Very small town at the time. Very beautiful waterfront. I'm just look at these courthouses. It just none of them make sense. 1905. You can see the buried layers already on this one. And this one just looks like a fantasy castle, does it not? This nope, this is in Saginaw, Michigan. Very small town of Saginaw, Michigan, especially at the time. Just look at the poor cutting out details of these photos. I could do a better job at Photoshop, and I do not know how to use Photoshop at all. And these people, they just all look so fake and like their pose. Like, look at this person. The more you look into these photos, my point is being, the more they just none of them, nothing about them adds up. Nothing. The lack of people in the shots, the lack of sky in the shots, the muddy streets oftentimes. I mean, look at this. This is just yeah, these streets look like they're paved relatively, unlike most of these shots. Good on you, Saginaw, Michigan. Scranton, Pennsylvania, another beautiful post office. And I think we're almost at our end here. St. Paul, Minnesota, of course, just looking like the Buffalo, New York, etc. This is another one, post office in Toledo, Ohio. Just way over the top, way over the top. Troy, New York. Doesn't matter, big or small. Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I mean, just look at all these big, giant, massive towers. To what need does a post office need a massive tower? And if you're just trying to compensate for something, like why such an over the top medieval looking tower? Notice the buildings with the slanting streets by level built. Yes, absolutely. All the slanted streets, also a good way to help cover up those buried layers. Danko, you said, I think this could be the little season also. I mean, there's a lot of points on both sides. You're absolutely right. You think the founders are them, to be honest? It's possible, Kathy. It's very well possible. More pieces in the puzzle, Kathy. Yes, exactly right, Michael. I think there's so many more pieces to uncover to make an absolute statement yet. I'm just presenting the evidence. I'm encouraging you guys to do the same. Check my stuff, question everything. That's bottom line. It's not just about history. Question the narrative of today, question all of it. That's how we're going to find more and more pieces to these puzzles. That one looks like it's giving you the finger. Kind of does, kind of does. And let's see here. Minneapolis, Minnesota, another beautiful post office. That's about the most quaint post office of them in New York. Let's look at the post offices today, though, shall we? So, this is what all of our modern machinery and heavy equipment brings when it comes to the modern post office. And yeah, I know mail isn't quite what it used to be, right? Nobody uses the mail like they did. But look at the drop in quality. Absolute drop in quality. It doesn't matter where it is. This is in Valley Park, Missouri. Small town, big town. Just ugly, characterless, featureless boxes. This is what I would expect a frontier town, a small town just starting out to build a quaint little building for the Postal Service, not towers and spires and cathedral like structures. This is what I would expect the 1800s, the 1900s of a country less than 100 years old. This is what I would expect them to build, not what they built, but this is what we build today. And we say we are far more advanced than those people in horse and buggy, right? We just do it all so efficiently and the cheapest and quickest we can, even though they build those castles just as quickly as they probably build this little US post office building. I do question everything to the annoyance of my whole family. Hey, that's okay. That's okay. If they're annoyed, that means they love you, right? That means at least they're willing to hear you out. But it's okay to question everything, even if you get the people around you annoyed. Um, I always say try not to push too hard, but it's okay if you annoy them a little bit here and there. Make them try and debate you. That's if they're annoyed and they want me to stop, well, then prove me wrong. I mean, even the most brand new post office buildings don't hold anywhere close to what they were building over 100 years ago. Just ugly, featureless buildings. You could slap a school sign on the front of this building, and it could be a school today. You could slap a Dollar General sign here, and it could be a Dollar General. All the architecture today is so repetitive, so bland. It could be almost any building. There's no character, no recognition to it. Case in point here, you remember the beautiful, beautiful Buffalo, New York building that I just showed you, the post office one, right? Well, let me show you Buffalo, New York, just in case you guys forgot, because it was kind of towards the beginning, and that's okay. So this was Old World Buffalo 1900s post office. Buffalo's getting a new post office, folks. Let's take a look at that. And this is a concept design of the current post office that they are building. And I had to do a double take. I used to be a general manager at a certain restaurant for a very long time. Take a look at it. Do you guys see that it looks kind of familiar to a certain fast food restaurant relatively popular across America? No? How about now? It's a frickin' Wendy's. Their new post office in Buffalo is a frickin' Wendy's. It looks like one for one, like a frickin' Wendy's, does it not, guys? I mean, that's how all of our buildings are looking like. So if the Wendy's moves out, a post office could move in. If the post office moves in, Popeye's Chicken can move in. Or if the post office goes under, the Popeye's Chicken can buy the building. Bland, featureless, interchangeable structures. Yeah, how long to build these new ones? I'd say this post office will probably take 2 years to build versus the post office that I showed you in the 1900s of Buffalo that was probably built in a year's time, right? Okay, so just kind of looking over a little bit of your questions here as well. Lack of sewers or fire hydrants in these photos too. Yeah, that's another odd thing talking about the sewers and stuff in these old world photos. So, a lot of these buildings, a lot of all of the civilizations feel like they were all kind of preloaded in. These major cities having sewer systems that were built at the same time, if not before these cities were built. So, even at the beginning of construction, they knew they needed a big, large sewer system. So, I mean, at the founding of these cities, they knew they were going to be large cities or medium sized cities or small cities, and they built the sewer system accordingly, if that makes sense. So, another thing, it's kind of like a rendering of a video game, right? Kind of like the same town you go through anywhere else, and it's basically the same type of building style, the same 3 layers of building quality inward, outward, right? Um, Here's your mail, want a Frosty too? Yeah. Yeah, they could do one of those, like, split, like, gas station fast food hybrids, like post office slash Wendy's hybrid. That's kind of what our society is going to. And you have to kind of see it to really understand what's going on in the big picture of it. Uh, Another thing regarding that, hold on just a moment. I want to pull up my notes on that part. Um, Something strange about this world, right? The uniformity we see throughout history, uh, right around the same period, completely isolated civilizations all across the world suddenly began doing almost the exact same things. If you guys have ever played any like civilization builders, any world builder type games, civilization like Sid Meier's Civilization or something like that growing up, great great world builder games. Anyways, if you've ever played games like that, you kind of know what I'm talking about. All these civilizations, the world over, continents apart, having no communication with one another, all seemed like they were given the same starting tech tree and the same starting technologies. And they all developed the exact same way. Yeah, that's another thing about the old world buildings. Absolutely. The sacred geometry in the buildings meant to heal. Absolutely. These buildings were meant to uplift and inspire, to uplift your energies, to heal you. The cymatic patterns, the sacred geometry repeating in all of these buildings. These temples weren't just places of worship, they were places of healing. We talked a little bit about that in previous episodes, but yeah, they just want us and the businesses to be interchangeable cogs without tradition or culture. That's exactly it. Yes, that's exactly the point of that segment. Um, the buildings are getting less and less featureless, less and less character to them. Before you know it, it'll all just be the same. And that's how they want them. They just interchange, the latest coffee shop that rolls into town, the latest fad restaurant comes in, takes over the last one. And it's looking the same worldwide. It's not just in America this is happening to. It's just all becoming just featureless cogs that can be easily taken out and put back in. So, looking at the strange uniformity we see throughout history, right around the same period, completely isolated civilizations all across the world suddenly begin doing the exact same things. They started growing the same crops, started domesticating the same animals, wearing linen clothing, developing pottery, and organized agriculture, all at roughly the same exact time. Like we all started on the game map at the same exact period, even though they had no contact with each other. It's almost like they were all given again the same starter pack, the same tech tree. From a distance, the official story looks clean and coherent. But the moment you zoom in and look closer, it becomes a mess. The timelines don't always line up. The explanations feel far too polished, too convenient. It's messy and coherent at the same time. This feels exactly like an old video game that's been running on the same save file, the same game version for far too long. The system starts glitching. It starts reusing the same assets, repeating the same patterns, and the story begins to contradict itself. The longer it runs, the more obvious the seams become visible. The simulation, whatever that is, truly seems to be starting to show. If this reality is some kind of simulation, I don't believe it's the cold, pure digital ones and zeros version, like the Matrix type thing that most people talk about. There's too much beauty here. There's too much genuine emotion, in my opinion, too much real organic life. It feels more like a hybrid system, if anything else, especially when your eyes are open, as I said earlier in the show. You just see this world's beauty, this true organic symmetry, that sacred repeating geometry. It definitely points to a higher power, but it doesn't seem like it's all just some digital ones and zeros simulation, right? At least that's how I look at it. But the underlying question remains, what exactly is this realm we inherited? We just don't know how or why about our true history, but I think somebody does. Maybe Kathy. Maybe the powers that be, the parasites have the complete picture. Maybe they are just as clueless as we are, but they're just trying to paint the best story to keep them in control and holding as much power as they can. Maybe a little mixture of both. So, any other, sorry, kind of lost my page here. So, anything else just, I mean, doesn't add up to me. The picture just, none of it adds up. Oh, that's not what I wanted to bring up here. Sorry, guys. Hold on. Just trying to pull back up my little slideshow I had going to show the many buried layers in every city across this realm. Here we go. Old and new. So, the simulation or whatever it is, does seem to be showing the more and more it runs. The double slit experiment shows us that reality literally behaves differently when it's being observed. Lights act like a wave when no one's watching, but the moment you look at it, it collapses into a particle. It only decides what it's doing when there is an observer observing it. If you guys haven't heard of the double slit experiment, it's just one of the most fascinating and eye-opening statements to this world is some way, shape, or form shaped by us, the observer, rendered when we're only observing something, much like a video game, a whole open world video game. The whole map does not load up at once. It, in fact, is just loading what you're viewing at the time. Give you an example. And this is exactly what scientists were noticing when they started firing particles through these slits. You would think it would be uniformed and organized, two different categories they're going through. They split through the slits and they line in those two lines. That's what they were seeing when they observed this. When they didn't deserve it, or when they didn't observe it, when there was no observer watching these particles, they behaved in completely different and unpredictable patterns. Alchemical, you said we used to communicate telepathically. Tower of Babel pertains to spoken language, which fosters deception on a mass scale. Thereafter, telebased tech now hinders those abilities. That makes sense. Absolutely. Yeah, we absolutely had telepathic powers And it's one thing, along with our pineal glands, that they have kind of made sure is shut off to us now. Biblically, going into the Tower of Babel thing, that's something for a whole nother day of, that's perhaps why that event transpired. But yeah, I definitely believe we still have those psychic abilities, probably far more than ones we have words for. But it's so shut out of the mainstream, it's told to us just as fiction, and that's what most of us will treat it as, just fiction. So the double, oh, sorry, let me bring that back up for you guys. Sorry. So the double slit experiment shows us that reality literally behaves differently when it's being observed. Lights act like a wave when no one's watching, but the moment you look at it, it collapses into a particle. It only decides what it's doing when it's being observed. Exactly like a video game that doesn't waste processing power rendering something unless a player is looking at it. And then there are many examples of this happening. Go out in your town, go a different route to work, go out in the middle of the night and see how the world kind of interacts differently. Um, so many times, I live in a metro with over 100,000, but I'm a late night person. I have hard time sleeping. Sometimes I like to get out, drive around, listen to music, kind of organize my thoughts. And it always fascinates me when I do this, when I step outside my normal routine. It's like the simulation or whatever it is doesn't quite react accordingly. 2 a.m., yeah, it's going to be limited traffic, limited people out, but so many places I've been, even in Chicago when I was exploring all of those buildings, um, they all seemed so empty at night, like, because it's not my usual routine. These big, like, downtown areas felt so empty, devoid of life, and it's repeated in any city, big or small, it seems like. That's why I encourage you guys to kind of give this a test. Ask yourself questions and observe your realities. When is the last time you guys have seen, for example, your neighbors taking in groceries? I don't think I have ever seen my neighbors, even my one that shares the other side of the building I'm in, and I see him pretty much daily. I've never seen him carrying groceries. I never see any of my neighbors around me carrying in groceries. There's a lot of these observations, these mundane human interactions that you do daily, the actual conscious entity you are. But if you observe your reality, you notice these mundane day to day tasks rarely happen. It just, you barely see people taking out their garbage, for example, just things that should be a daily seeable occurrence. The amounts of people mowing their lawns, out doing yard work, you very rarely see that is my, kind of my examples there for you guys on that. You could bind all of this, the inherited infrastructure we didn't build, the suspiciously clean history that was written long after the fact, the copy and pasted civilizations, the empty streets, the reality that only seems to really render when we observe it, just like the double slit experiment. And it all starts pointing toward one uncomfortable question: what kind of world did we actually inherit? So that's kind of, in large part, my outline for the evening. Um, Really, I don't have a clear answer to that. It's one that keeps me up often at night. Um, it's one that, you just can't shake, especially the more and more you see this pattern repeating. Let me pull up another one of those slideshows of some of these patterns repeating for you guys. while we chat a little bit more, kind of wrap up the show for the night and talk about Friday and take some of your questions. Try and get as much to your questions at the end of the episode here now. So if you guys have any, just start dropping them in chat. Make sure if you guys haven't already, like, share, and subscribe to this video. If you haven't subscribed to the channel already, I'd greatly appreciate it if you would like to see more and you like this content. So we focus in on one specific probability with mind and add mass to it in order to bring it to fruition. So electrons are the terminals for energy to be condensed into form and phenomena via forces. Okay. I have gay neighbors, no hate. Do you never see it? They also have a dozen or so smart devices, all named Goat. Other neighbors are family. We talk about this a lot. Uh, okay. Just trying to look through some more of your guys' comments, some questions here. Yeah, it's awkwardly quiet when most people are sleeping. I mean, yeah, that's true. You're going to expect it to be pretty quiet, but there's still third shifters. There's the late night gas station, 24-hour gas station run people that all seem suspiciously absent. I've noticed it a lot more. I like I said, I've always kind of been a night owl, always been a person that has a hard time sleeping. And when having a hard time falling asleep some nights, I like to get out and drive around, drive in, back road, country roads, stuff like that. But no matter where you go, the city, the country roads, like the lack of cars, the lack of people making that late night run, need to get some Tylenol for an aching tooth. So it's just, there's very little people there. I went from one end of my city to the other day at about not even 2 o'clock. It was like 1, 2 o'clock in the morning and I could maybe count as many cars as I passed on one hand, if that even. It just seems so eerie, so quiet, so very devoid of life. The neighbor problems. Yeah, exactly, Kathy, exactly. So, should arrange a field trip with people here. Yeah, I am. That is my hopes with these old world tours I've been doing. I've gotten contacted by a couple people that live in Milwaukee and want me to let them know when I come down there and they'll join me on the tours. I mean, it wasn't really necessarily my plan to have like in-person tours, but I that sounds like a great idea. We should definitely do some great old world tours. Chicago would be a great place to do it. Milwaukee, bigger cities like that. Let's take a look at it from beyond the narrative that we've been taught. Oh, I'm definitely a believer of Christ, absolutely. How many people do I think are NPCs? That's a very hard question to answer. I mean, they say I don't believe in the population numbers. I don't believe any of the facts and figures and data that were given by the official sources. I don't believe that there's 8 billion people necessarily. I don't believe we're following a overpopulation problem. If anything, we have an underpopulation problem. Um, and with that said, like, I don't know, maybe half, maybe more sometimes. It just if you I'm a great hobby of mine is just people watching, just watching people's go about their day to day, walking their dogs. It's always kind of fascinating to see how people get about sometimes. And they just all seem like I don't know. It's kind of hard to put into words exactly. Uh, but again, the more and more pattern recognition you take to this stuff, the more you question how many people are actually like conscious, real human beings. You would like that. I'm in Ohio, Seth. Yeah, Seth, I got Nephilim Hunter also in Ohio. He's, opened his place up to me. We were talking back and forth about setting up a time to go to his area of the woods, maybe set up a couple Ohio stops soon. Ohio has tons of great old world buildings, tons of buried history. The Midwest is like a focal point of that. Very much so. Oh, yeah, Cincinnati. I cannot wait now from Hunter. I've been through Ohio several times, but never stopped at Cincinnati, never stopped in Cleveland. Oh, I am quite excited. I am quite excited indeed. A lot of people's lights are on, but they aren't home. Yes, exactly. That's a great way to explain it, Bay. It's like the mouth breather statement, you can just see people, like, walking around openly with their mouth just looking at their phone, just spacing, just their mouth is just constantly just wide open, just almost like a drooling expression. Those people I would highly, um, state that they probably are NPCs. If you're listening to this program, you're listening to shows like this, you're questioning the narrative, you're not always just doom scrolling on your phone, um, looking for the next Goy slot meal, then you're not an NPC. Let's see here. We have been lied to. Satan is the father of lies. Absolutely lifting the veil. Absolutely. 8 billion people fit inside a 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer cube. It is just the parasites controlling the resources to make it look like there are shortages. Yeah, exactly right, Michael. Even if we take the population figures for truth to what they tell us, the 1 billion people could fit in 8 billion people can fit in the state of Texas with the population density of New York City. So, I mean, just think about that. 8 billion people, everybody that they say is alive in this world right now. But when you look at the population figures, I mean, you can just see the fakery there. But yeah, all in a population density of New York in the state of Texas with plenty of room to spare. Do I have any list of any old world buildings built in or around a year's time? Yes, I do. Not like a large coherent list. If you guys be interested in that, I could start like spreadsheeting all these buildings. That's one of the first things I look at when I pull up a city I want to go travel to or look at. All right, what are the buildings with the impossible build times? What are the population times for these buildings when they were built at the time? Uh, I kind of do like little notes and jot down list as I go, but I don't have like a running list. I should probably do that, not just with like building times and stuff like that, but just kind of all these general repeating patterns and just spreadsheeting it. That would be a great way to show the not so awakened mind yet. It is eerie how many NPCs are out there. Yes, floppy choppers, it absolutely is. I mean, whatever the number, it's eerie. And when you start seeing the pattern, when you notice like the people in the world around us aren't quite acting like you and I. I mean, whatever you want to call them. I mean, NPCs, whatever. I think NPC is a pretty good word for it. Whether, real background noise, soulless, whatever. There is, you believe NPCs aren't real. There is Theo sides. The NPCs are those brainwashed to believe all religion is false. I believe they can be reached with effort. That's why I'm not necessarily wanting to put a number on NPCs and I don't want to say if they're real or fake because yeah, I have woken up people. I've had many people in almost the decade of doing this now come to me and said, I've always been just so brainwashed by the system and started questioning things, started digging into things and just woke up. Yeah, it's that's why I said I don't think the simulation or whatever it is a systems of ones and zeros, at least not fully. I believe there are people that are just fully brainwashed. There's many different levels of it. Can they get unplugged? Can all of them get unplugged? I'd like to think so. I'm a lover of people. I'm a lover of humanity. I'm a lover of moving humanity forward. I would like to think every single one of them can be reached. Every single one of them can be awakened. I've learned and I became a little bit nihilistic over the years, a little bit cynical about that. Trying not to wake everyone up, just the ones that want to hear it. But hopefully you're right about that. I hope that's the right answer. Hey Andy, it is great to meet you as well. I am Jake, Jacob, the improbable dreamer. Nephilim Hunter, thank you so much for the super chat. Really appreciate that as well. Thank you very, very much, guys. I appreciate each and every one of your guys' supports. Even just a like and a follow is the greatest thing you can do to support this program. And of course, tuning in every Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday as we just continue questioning the narrative. So, couple more things. Tomorrow night, we'll be talking a little bit more about the airships and mooring stations and lighthouses. You guys had quite a few great questions on those. I didn't get to a lot of them. A lot of you guys had quite a lot of thoughts and ideas about them as well. We'll look over some other things that could have very well been a mooring station, not just the lighthouses, right? All those empty bell towers, all those water towers, way overbuilt architecture for the time. It wasn't just the way overbuilt lighthouses that they were using as mooring stations. We'll also talk more about the simulation theory. I have a couple more segments on that. I didn't want to quite dig into them because they're a little bit lengthy. The empty and abandoned streets, the empty and abandoned muddy streets, all at the same time period as well, show that we just jump into this world, it seems. The beautiful architecture seems to be already there for us. And we just fill in these empty streets, these empty cities, and build our varyingly lower degree quality buildings around them. Non-playable characters. Yep, exactly. NPCs. Yep. Do I know the mill that went for sale across from Sacred Heart? No, I don't. Oh, you're talking to Nephilim Hunter, I think. Okay, never mind. Sorry, I didn't mean to jump in there. So yeah, we'll do some open lines Friday. I would love to take some calls if you guys want to call into the show. I'd love to hear your simulation thoughts. I'd love to hear what you guys think this world we live in is. Is it simulation? Is it organic? Let's hear your guys' thoughts on NPCs. Of course, I'll get to all of your guys' questions that I missed today's episode and tomorrow's episode. Well, at least I'd say as much as I can. And that'll be Friday's show. Next week, like I said, business as usual, Tuesday, Thursdays, and Fridays, 10:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. If you guys haven't already joined the conversation before and after the show, I'd love to chat with you guys late at night. I'm up for a while after the episode, editing and posting the show for tonight. So if you guys want to talk about this episode more, Discord, great place to do it. Make sure you join my link tree or check out my link tree as well to follow all my other pages on social, my Telegram page, my if you want to support the page, there's various options to do that as well. Reworking the merch site. A lot of you guys have came to me wanting merchandise, show merchandise, etc. Not really much of a person to push that type of stuff, so I haven't really thought about it. I have a merchandise page, but it's really old, kind of outdated. There's still some great stuff I made years ago on it if you guys want to check it out, but I am kind of in the works of reworking that page, getting some show specific merchandise. If you guys have any ideas of what you'd like to see merchandise wise, t-shirts, hoodies, maps, whatever, just let me know in the chat comments as well. I think we'll leave it at that for tonight. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's program. I will see you tomorrow night, 10:30 p.m. Central Standard Time on our Open Lines Friday. Until then, question everything, friends, and have a great rest of your night. Thanks for tuning in.